All right. So yesterday, every Wednesday, we do a Dopey Patreon Zoom and recovery Zoom. And yesterday might have been the greatest Dopey Patreon recovery Zooms we ever had. And one of the reason is old friend of the show, Dove. What's going on? Welcome back.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm back in Asheville, but I guess yesterday I was talking about, what was going on up in the Northeast when I got out of inpatient treatment.
Were you
Had a
very,
fun.
very ashamed to talk to me because we got you a scholarship to Mountainside that you fucked up and
A little.
you never turned up again? What can you please catch us up on what happened?
Okay, I will admit, I thought that you might be mad at me.
For what?
I don't know, because it was such an awesome thing that you did to get me there, and then I fucked it up. Literally, you said right as I went, don't fuck it up, and then I fucked it up.
Tell
You
us
said,
how.
keep your eye on the ball.
Keep your eye on the ball. Tell us how you fucked it up.
Let's see. I mean, there were a few different factors at play. I had a really great experience in inpatient treatment. It's like super safe and stable and structured in there. I was like, this is awesome. I like to be the star pupil of rehab. So I'm like participating in everything and just like super focused. I mean, I did some things that you're not supposed to do, that they tell you that you're not supposed to do. And it turned out exactly how they say it's going to turn out.
Just tell us what happened, please. What's wrong with you?
I don't want to get too much into the details, but I was talking to guys and I was still getting high off of that. It was like very intoxicating. And I think that I didn't realize when it was going on, like quite how intoxicating it was. So when it blew up in my face a couple weeks, after I got out, it was just like coincided with a few other things. And I just started like spiraling really quickly, getting really depressed. It was gray. It was dreary. It was like early March in Connecticut. And yeah.
Doesn't everybody want to be in Connecticut in early March though? Isn't that like
God,
the thing? No,
it's
and
the
I think
worst place.
I can totally relate. I was intoxicated with romance at Mountainside one time myself. The same exact thing happened to me. But I just left. I did 28 days. I was intoxicated with romance. Nothing really happened. I think I might have made out with the lady at Mountainside in like near the labyrinth under a
Yeah.
tree in a very romantic moment. And then I wound up going home and relapsing, and that's not to say Mountainside doesn't offer an amazing continuum of care, but it happens, you know what I mean?
No,
And
I had a wonderful experience there. I really did. But yeah, I just didn't realize how much it was affecting me until, I felt like I had like a second detox when that all ended, because then I like really had nothing that would to like get me high. And like I started some medication there that was like working really well at first, and then it kind of like wasn't working as well when I got out, which was bad timing. I did go to sober living. Like when I went to Mountainside, I packed my bags for sober living. I was like, I'm doing this, like not half-assing it this time. Like I'm going to do everything they tell me. I'm going to sober living. But when I got there, yeah, it was just, I started getting really depressed, and that's when I started crushing up my Wellbutrin. That was like the beginning of my relapse.
you didn't think for a second that crushing up the Wellbutrin was a red flag or a
Of course
thing.
I did. Of course I did.
What's the
But
effect? What's the difference between
dude,
taking Wellbutrin and crushing it up?
it just hits you faster. It's like a very short-lived, shitty high. It's like I said yesterday, it's like what people do in prison when they can't get real drugs, which is like why it's so baffling to me that I would do this when I could have gone out and gotten real drugs, but then I would have failed my drug test. So like in my head, I'm in this desperate place where I just desperately want to get high. I also desperately want to stay clean, and I can't fail my drug test. So my solution to that was to, misuse medication that I was prescribed. So I was like crushing it up at this sober living. They have you fill up your med box once a week. So, and a staff member is there while you're doing it. But she's like, turning around and like talking to someone else. And while she's doing this, I'm like slipping extra pills into my pocket. And then, so I'm like adding on to the dose that I'm already prescribed. And of course I knew deep down that this was not right, but I could somehow like rationalize in my head that this isn't a relapse. I'm not going to fail my drug test. This is the medication I'm prescribed. So like, I can just quietly do this and, you know, no one will know. But yeah, obviously that was the beginning of things starting to go downhill.
What's the effects of Wellbutrin? Is it speedy? A little
Yeah, it's
speedy?
speedy. It's speedy.
So then what happens?
So then I, you know, moved from phase 1 into phase 2. It's sober living. So I'm allowed to drive by myself. I'm allowed to do overnights. So I decided to go home to upstate New York for the weekend. And I knew when I had like moved a bunch of my shit from North Carolina that somewhere tucked in my shit was a supply of this drug called modafinil, which is like a shittier Adderall. It's like a stimulant. And I've been buying it for like the last decade for when I couldn't get amphetamines. It's prescription only in the United States. I think they prescribe it to like shift workers to keep them awake and like narcoleptics, but you can buy it from these sketchy websites that will ship it to you from India. So I've been doing that for a while. I actually got a letter once from US Customs that was like, we've intercepted your package. Like, do not do this anymore. Or there will be some sort of consequence, which I kept doing it and there wasn't any consequence.
It's like the letter said, Dove, aren't you trying to be in recovery? Why are you buying modafinil from India and crushing it up?
This was years and years ago when I was trying to be in recovery.
I'm just joking. But here we are, right? You've in and out, starting on heroin, really deep into kratom, living on the beaches of Mexico, in and out. Fucking get the coveted scholarship, which was shocking through the grace of Mountainside more than me. And I'm not trying to make you feel guilty.
Really rubbing it in.
I'm not trying to make you feel, it's part of me that I can't help but make you feel guilty. But that's not my point. My point is the mindset, right? You go upstate and you're just like, fuck it. It's not that bad. It's delicious but still. What's the
honestly,
mindset?
My mindset, it wasn't even fuck it yet. Like I got to that. But in this instance, I was still rationalizing in my head. I was like, it's not Adderall, you know, it's not a true amphetamine. It's like it doesn't really get you high. It just like kind of gets you high. And I was like, I'm so depressed. I can't function. I can't get anything done. I'll just take half of one pill, you know, to get some stuff done, to get my taxes done, organize my things. Like, so I get home, hug my parents, pet the dog, go upstairs.
Do you think that could help me clean my office? Maybe get Dopey back on track.
But I wouldn't advise it. I take half a pill, and then I take another half a pill, and then I take a whole pill, and before you know it, it's 3 days later, I'm still awake, you know, just like veering into psychosis, totally strung out. I took thousands of milligrams of this like weird drug from India that's definitely like not safe. At that point, I was kind of like, fuck it. I knew that like there's no way I can rationalize anymore that this isn't like a full-on relapse. And it also just totally ignited the like mental obsession. And from that point, I mean, it was only a matter of time before I like used my drug of choice.
So wait, you're in upstate. Do you go back to Connecticut at that point?
Yeah. So I go back to sober living, and I'm just miserable for like a week and a half. Just like can't stop thinking about using. Like people say that shit about how like a craving lasts like 17 minutes or whatever. Like that is such bullshit. Like my cravings last days, weeks, you know, and I just couldn't stop thinking about using. So I did what, you know, another thing that everyone tells you not to do. And I went and met up with my friend Chris at a motel in Great Barrington, actually, which is funny. He had gotten kicked out of sober living, and he was there doing God knows what. I drove up there. I walked in. It looked about like how you'd expect it to look. You know, there's like bottles of booze around. Chris is in his pajamas, looking pretty haggard. And I wasn't like tempted by the booze at all, but he convinced me to drive him to a smoke shop up in Pittsfield to get some nitrous.
How hard was it to convince you to do that?
I was about to say, to be fair, probably didn't require that much convincing. Because, like, yeah, nitrous doesn't show up on drug tests. It's a really common thing for people to relapse on when they're in sober living.
I have a question. You go back to sober living from upstate, and you're talking about this kind of prolonged craving. Is the recovery journey kind of out the window for you at that moment? It's like that's the hardest thing. I remember I lived in sober living in Florida, right, in Delray, and I was I wanted to be all in on recovery, but I also really wanted to get back to smoking weed. And I went to a 7-Eleven in Delray Beach, and there was some hippie in front of me online. And I was just like, I don't know what I said. I just said, "Where's the bud at?" or something. And he directed me to some pink house in Delray. And then I just started smoking weed, living in sober living. And my roommate ratted me out because I left a nugget sitting on my nightstand. And my
Oh,
roommate
stoners.
ratted me out, and I was friends with him, Donnie. I wonder what happened to him.
Mm.
He ratted me out, and I got kicked out of sober living, and then they let me back in, but I was never in recovery there again. It was done.
Right.
Like, my recovery journey was finished. When you come home after your modafinil fucking extended weekend of taxes and cleaning, are you interested in your recovery at all?
I mean, I still am. I mean, I feel like over the last few years since I've been in and out, there has never been a moment where I wasn't like desperate to be clean. But there's just like a moment where I'm so miserable that the desperation just to feel better outweighs the desperation to be clean. You know what I mean? Like, more than anything, I'm just desperate to feel okay in my own skin. And there's only so long I can like sit in it before I convince myself that a drug is the only thing that's going to make me feel okay. Like, I can't take this anymore. But, I'm still like trying to convince myself that, things are going to be okay. I'm going to be able to stop. I'm going to be able to use just once. I'm going to, whatever it is, that is never the case. I knew I was in trouble at this point because I was doing shit that I wasn't telling my sponsor about, and I wasn't telling anyone about because I knew that it was fucked up. And I
You
knew that
weren't
they would.
telling your sponsor about this Indian business,
No,
right?
of course not. Of course not.
I mean, I'm going to say something really annoying really quickly. Last
Okay.
week, we had this guy on the show who burnt off his foot and the bottom part of his leg while on fentanyl. And now he has a prosthetic leg. And at the end of the interview, I started pushing AA on him, like 12-stepping him, basically. which I'm sort of known to do, but I'm also not really known to do. And I got a bunch of people complaining about it. And when you're talking about the nature of a craving or how long a craving lasts, my 12-steppiness kind of kicks in. And I'm like, well, how long would a craving last if you're, I heard, you want to hear the newest fucking cliche that I heard that I'm just totally like invested
Tell me
in?
about
There is no problem that doesn't have a spiritual solution. That's what I heard. I heard that I was like annoyed with something. I don't remember what it was weeks ago. And I went to a meeting and some old lady said that. And I was like, I was
No,
very
I like that.
interested. I was very interested in that answer. And I wonder, can you superimpose that answer on top of you returning to sober living after the modafinil? Did you have modafinil when you went back, or you were done?
Yes. Yeah, I did.
Oh, you were
I
still
had a little
using.
more. Yeah, I used it for a few more days, like what I had remaining.
You always hold back a few details when you tell these stories. There's always a couple
I
things you
know.
just don't mention.
Dude, this honesty thing is like still new to me. I'm always like, oh, I'm being honest now, but it's like, it's only honest compared to like the crazy amount of lying that I used to do. You know
At
what I
the
mean?
same time, were you like dropping LSD in your eyeballs and like
No,
boofing
no,
liquid kratom or
nothing like
baby
that.
Benadryl up your butt or
But
something?
I did. You love boofing. You just can't stop talking about
Well,
boofing.
it's a comically robust arena for
It
drug
is.
taking.
It is. I was doing this weird thing where I was like, started going into grocery stores and
Mm.
getting those little tinctures of kava from like Herb Farm that like they don't even do anything, but you're supposed to take a few drops. And I go into to the bathroom, drink the whole thing, and throw it away. I don't even know, dude. Like, I don't know what
Is
I
that in your
was doing.
that's in your sober living run?
Yeah, this is like in these couple of weeks where I am like spinning into like a full relapse, and I'm just desperate to get high. And I
Well,
had done
people.
that when I went to go see Chris, which I got to finish this story, by the way. The next part's really funny.
No, we're gonna get back to that story, but not only are you you're whatever, drinking kava in the supermarket, but you're stealing the kava tincture. And also, what kind of grocery stores have tinctures of kava? Mine, Stop and Shop
They all
doesn't.
do. All the like
Stop and
shishi
Shop
ones
doesn't.
and yeah, no. Shishi grocery stores in Great Barrington have it.
Okay,
Yeah.
so back to you and Chris, not Chris of Dopey fame, obviously. You and Chris in Great Barrington, the source. You're at a motel with him.
Yes. But then so
Alcohol.
we drive up to Pittsfield to go to a smoke shop to get some nitrous. So we go in, Chris buys a $230 tank of nitrous, which I've never seen a tank that big before. I've done whippets like from the little canisters with the balloons, you know, like, and I always thought it was kind of a stupid thing to relapse on because it's just such a short-lived high. But yeah, he gets this $230 tank of nitrous. We head back to
How
Great
big?
Barrington.
Hold on. What does it look like? How big is it?
It's like, I don't know, like 2.5, 3 feet tall, like maybe a diameter of like 10, 12 inches. Like, it's fucking big. And before we even exit Pittsfield city limits, he's got it out of the box. He's in the passenger seat of my truck, just hitting nitrous, you know. And he's talking. He kind of stops making sense. We're headed back to Great Barrington. What do you want to ask?
I have lots of questions. First of all, in my day, you could only get whippets, or you hit a whipped cream bottle, or you go to some, like my friend Todd, his dad was a dentist, so there were tanks around, but that was all pilfered from dentistry. What is available in a smoke shop? Like, and how do you hit a nitrous? Like, does it come with a hose? Does it come with balloons?
It comes with like a hose. And this was a huge nitrous tank sold at a smoke shop, clearly for people to, get high off of. It's not coming from dentistry. It wasn't even like taken from like that sort of manufacturing. It's like whoever's manufacturing this nitrous, it is like for the purpose of getting high. But yeah, there's like a hose that, you like turn a little valve and suck it and then close it. And yeah.
So he's driving. Are you
No,
holding
I'm
the
driving.
tank? Okay.
I'm driving. He's in the passenger seat with the tank between his knees, hitting it.
Yeah.
Like aggressively, And so we're headed back to the motel. I'm kind of antsy to get back to the motel because like I want to get in on this. And so we get there, we go inside. I start hitting it. He's hitting it. I see why people like it is very euphoric. And when you have that amount of it, you can just keep taking more, keep taking more, keep taking more. So I'm hitting it. He's hitting it. I'm hitting it. Like before too long, we're like wrestling it out of each other's arms practically, like just two crackheads being crackheads. And I have to get back to sober living by 6 p.m. for like our group dinner. But I'm just like putting it off because I want one more hit, one more hit, one more hit. I guess that's why they call it hippie crack. And then it gets to the point.
And you say you're not a hippie too.
I know I said that for you because I know you like to tease me about that.
Well, you're stealing tinctures of kava in the shishi hippie grocery stores. You're
I know. See, this is why I don't say things I'm embarrassed of, because then you throw them back at me and make me even more embarrassed.
I just think you should reevaluate yourself as a hippie. That's all. But continue, please. That was like, I think I got 5 messages after you were on Dopey last time. Someone needs to let Dove know she's a hippie. So that's my job.
All right. I'll think about it.
Take it under advisement. Yeah.
I'll take it under advisement. So yeah, it gets down to the wire. I have to get back to sober living by 6 p.m. So I leave and start driving down the road. Now, Chris has left the big cardboard box that this tank came in my truck. It has like an image of the tank on the outside. Pretty sure it says like NO2. And
is there a brand name? Is there a brand name on the tank?
Probably, but I don't remember what it was.
Is it called Hippie Crack? That would be awesome if they branded the nitrous.
Start one. Yeah.
I'm thinking about it. I'm thinking about just seeing if they sell it in town. Maybe Dopey Hippie Crack. That could be a big dopey product. It's not a relapse nitrous. Anyway, keep going.
It's perfect. Yeah, so it's in the back of my truck. He didn't want to bring it into the hotel room because he like doesn't want the like ladies that clean his room to see it. But I'm like, well, fuck, now I'm driving back to sober living with this giant cardboard box in the back of my truck that like says NO2 on it. So I had thought, I'll just like find somewhere to toss it, like in a garbage or dumpster or something on the way back so that, my sober living won't see it. But at this point, I don't have time to do that. But anyway, I'm driving down the county highway and I start feeling sick, like really. It's coming on fast. I'm getting really nauseous. I feel like beads of sweat like popping out of my forehead. I feel the blood like draining out of my face, and I try to fight it, but eventually I can't anymore, and I swing my truck into like this parking lot on the side of the county highway. And in an effort to not let everyone driving by on the highway at like 5:30 p.m. see me yakking out of the side of my truck, I grab the nitrous box and I start puking into the nitrous box. Which, if anyone has ever tried to use a cardboard box as a vessel for vomit before, they will know that it's not a good idea. Immediately,
Horrible.
the bottom starts getting soggy. It's like leaking out of the cracks at the bottom, onto my pants, onto the floor of my truck, into the like cup holders in the console of my truck. And I'm like, fuck, like I cannot go back to sober living smelling like vomit. So I give up at this point, open my door, toss the box filled with vomit out the window, continue puking. This is like, I'm sure, quite a scene for anyone
Hold
driving
up,
by on the
hold up.
highway.
Why not? And this is a dumb question, but why not vomit in the box out of the truck? Like just hold,
Because
because
then people would have still seen me. The point
right.
was, I didn't want to open the door of my truck and have everyone driving by on the highway see me puking out of the side. Like,
See, I think this is another example of the blessing of rigorous honesty. That it's better to save your ass than save your face, kind of thing. Because you're like, the box is
I
leaking
was
vomit all over you.
definitely like losing both my ass and my face at the moment. Yeah, so I finish up. Here's another shitty thing I did, I'm ashamed to admit. I left the box filled with puke on the side of the highway. Definitely owe someone an amends for that. I'm not sure who.
That's the least of it. Of all this stuff, that's the least thing you should feel shitty about. But keep going, please.
So then I hightail it back to sober living. At this point, I'm going to be a tiny bit late. So I get there. There's like a staff member like waiting at the door. I'm like 1 minute late, but I'm never late for anything. So like, I feel like they kind of knew something was up. So I walk in. I'm sure I looked haggard as fuck. I'm like white as a sheet. They tell me that my lips look purple. I like try and play it off as food poisoning. Don't know if they bought it or not. But I went and like didn't go to dinner, laid down. And when I wake up in the morning, I'm just feel like dog shit. I'm like, this is not good. Like, this is a full on relapse. I'm lying to everyone. Like, I'm fucked. So I just drive to the smoke shop and I buy one of those extract shots. And even in this moment, though, I will say they just drug tested us on Friday. So I was like, maybe I can just take one and then I'll just like drink a lot of water for the week and they won't drug test us again since they just did it. So like, maybe I can get this out of my system. But,
But you're
I take one in
saying
the
you're not.
morning.
You didn't buy an extract shot of kratom of kava. You bought an extract shot of kratom.
Yeah, which will show up on a drug test because they test for that. And then,
Now,
so
I have a question though.
yeah,
You've done like every drug in the world. You're in full blown relapse in sober living, and you go for kratom. Why?
I think, well, I mean, first of all, it would have been difficult for me to find like a hard drug in this rural town in Connecticut where I don't know anyone. And like the smoke shop is like less than a mile from the house that I'm living in. And like, it's just the most convenient option at that point, I think.
And how hard? And I've never done kratom, so how hard does it hit you? Like, is it basically hard drugs in reality?
Dude, those shots to me feel like taking Percocet. I mean, yeah, it's very strong. It's like the shots are like on a different level than the powder. I mean, the powder gets you high too, but the shots are just like, yeah, they're really strong. It feels like a regular opiate to me. So yeah, I take one in the morning and I think that that's going to be the only one. Then I'm back in the afternoon to buy two more. Then I'm back in the evening to buy another one. At this point, I've spent almost $100 like in a single day. And I kind of know I'm fucked because there's no way I'm getting this out of my system within like 5 days. And anyway, then I get back to the house that night and they're like, oh, they're doing a surprise drug test tonight. So
Oh my
I'm like,
god!
oh God, I'm so fucked. So I piss in the cup. I like don't know what I'm gonna do. That night I fall asleep and I like dream about getting kicked out of the house and dream about getting in trouble and like have all these terrible anxiety dreams. And I wake up in the morning and I'm just like, I'm fucked. So I just tell the house manager And I didn't know they were going to do this, but within an hour and a half, all my shit is packed up and I'm back in inpatient treatment, giving my drug history to some admissions counselor for like the 15th the last year. And yeah, that was my last relapse. That was April 8th. So I got to treatment on the day of the solar eclipse. And then I just they were like letting people watch the eclipse. So I was just like laying in the grass with those glasses on, watching the moon move over the sun, just fucking hating myself. But also feeling a little like wave of relief wash over me because, I needed to be in a place where I was like safe for myself at that point. Things were just spiraling and I could have never, I can only be dishonest for so long is what I've learned over with like all these relapses over the last year and a half. And like eventually, I would have told my sponsor and I would have told the house and like I can't just like pretend that stuff didn't happen anymore the way that I used to. Like if I say I have 30 days, if I say I have 60 days, like I want to like feel good when I say that, not feel this thing in the pit of my stomach that's like, but I don't actually have 60 days, because I did that for a long time. Like I picked up key tags when I had gotten high. I used in the bathroom at meetings. Like I used after meetings. I used before meetings. I picked up a 60-day key tag when I was high. And I can't do that anymore. I mean, is part of the problem.
You can. And we've all done that. You know what I mean? Like we've all done that. And you can do it. It's just like I can go to the store and buy a tank of nitrous right now. I'm not going to. You know what I mean? Like as much, and it's funny because I've been fantasizing about my nitrous relapse at the dentist, like every show. I fucking mentioned how much, like, is it a relapse if it's at the dentist and nitrous? And your story, like, makes me be like, oh man, you know what I mean? Maybe that's not what I should be after. I mean, so it's like, it's funny how our fuck ups definitely help somebody else, but it's also like, I think you're young, you've been through the mill, you've fucked it up countless times. We all do. And at some point, it's like, all right, I don't want to do that this time.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? And
absolutely.
it's not an I can't. It's like, I just don't want to.
Yeah.
Because you can. You could fucking
No,
fuck it up right now.
absolutely. No, I definitely, when I got to the treatment center, can I say the name of it? Is that?
Yeah.
Yeah, High Watch. It's like right down the road from Mountainside, but it's
We
like
know.
12-step
Everyone knows.
boost
We all know
boot
High
camp.
Watch.
Okay.
Twan at that meeting yesterday, and I think Twan's
Mm-hmm.
going to be part of this show.
Awesome.
I've made this effort to try to recreate the. Wasn't that Zoom very magical yesterday?
Yeah. Oh, it was great. It was wonderful.
I want to recreate it, but he did the same thing. He was at Mountainside. He was working at Mountainside, and then I think he wound up working at High Watch, and then he wound up back at Mountainside.
Yeah,
But
that's a lot of employees have gone, and a lot of clients have gone back and forth between the two. But for me, it was a good place for me to be at that point because it's very rigid. There's a lot of rules. It's definitely like a one size fits all type of place, and that size is the 12 steps. So if you're not a 12-step person, it wouldn't be a great place for you. But for me, and you'll probably love this, but I had been going to meetings for a really long time, but I hadn't really been doing step work. I'd worked step 1. I was on step 2, and I was kind of yeah, I'm thinking about step 2, for months and months and months, but I wasn't sitting down and really, I'm doing it in the Narcotics Anonymous flat book. So I wasn't sitting down and answering the questions. And at High Watch, they set you up with a step coach. So I was there. I was desperate. I had nothing to do. You can't talk to guys there. There's nothing for me to do except work on the steps. So I just threw myself into it. And it really helped, especially when I got to step 3. That was a real big shift for me when I started thinking about what does it mean to be in my self-will, and why does my self-will keep failing me? I don't want to feel the way that I felt right before I got here ever again, just complete existential misery. And I heard someone say at a story when they were telling their story there, because they bring in outside speakers, he was like, this is not a meetings program that has steps. This is a steps program that has meetings. And I was like, I just kind of felt like a little light bulb go off in my head. And I was like, oh, like the meetings are really just kind of like auxiliary, like support. But like the steps are the program. And I was not, working them.
Yeah, I mean, I was in NA and I didn't do the steps at all. Maybe I did 1, 2, and 3 kind of the way exactly like you were describing it. And I'm a huge 12-step person at this point. It doesn't mean I like it. You know what I mean? I don't particularly like it. I found that I needed to do something, and it was a really simple thing to try. And then they have the audacity to tell me that if I do it thoroughly, that I'm promised good results. And I was like, okay. So I did it thoroughly and I got good results, but
Right.
I don't
Yeah.
like it. I don't
Yeah.
like being 12-steppy. Like it doesn't suit me, but it saved my life. You know what I mean?
But
Like,
why don't you like being 12-steppy? Is it like
'cause
that is there like something in your ego that
yeah,
where you, yeah.
my ego, I'm so cool. How could I be this cool and be such a weird 12-step nerd? You know what I mean? Like how could
Absolutely. Yeah.
I live on like television and comedy and rock and roll and stuff and be like, well, God, blah blah blah. Like
Yeah.
I don't. It's
100%.
uncomfortable. It's
Mm-hmm.
uncomfortable to me. Those things, like when I like got well, and I tried to tell my father how God, like I basically was saved through God, through higher power. He was like, what the fuck is wrong with you? It's such an anathema to where I come from
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
it doesn't suit me, but at the same time I'm fucking all in. Like when I tell you like that I heard someone say that there is no problem that there isn't a spiritual solution for, it's because I have problems. And
Yeah.
I have problems like with ego, and I have problems with like compulsion and like just fucking shit gets in my way. And like if I treat it with spirituality and with service and all that stuff, I get better, and then I feel better, and not in a weird 12-steppy spiritual way. I feel better in a normal way because
Yeah.
I engage in that way. But it's weird, and it makes me uncomfortable because I just turned 50. By the way, I turned 50 on Saturday. Okay, did your screen freeze? Are you still there? Did I just shock you? You're gone, Dove.
Overheated. Sorry. It's sitting on the dash of my truck in the fucking hot North Carolina sun. That's how. I just put it in front of the air conditioner. It'll be fine.